So, Mitchell Vickridge, man,
Let's rock and
welcome to
roll.
Thoughts on Purpose podcast, brother. I'm so stoked to have you today.
Me too. Stoked to be here. Let's rock and roll. Can't wait.
Rock and roll, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. So, guys, for those of you who don't know Mitch, Mitch is a human mechanic, which was on his bio. I thought that was super cool. What an awesome title.
Yeah, I like that one. We'll run with it.
Yeah, let's run with that. So, Mitch helps people overcome, reverse, and heal from IBD, so inflammatory bowel disease.
So,
The four specific areas Mitch focuses on: number one, breath, fungi, lay, cacao. Now they were on your bios. I thought we'd bring those on board. We'll expand on them. We'll tear them apart,
yeah.
and we'll see how we go. So thanks so much for being here, brother. I'm excited for where this conversation is going to go.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. What state? What part of Australia are you in, brother?
I'm Perth. Freo, kind of born and bred. So yeah, I would just consider myself a Freo boy.
Okay.
Old school, traditional. I'm the last of my father's 6 children, so I have older parents, and they've kind of embedded some nice traditional values, I guess you could say, or morale. And so I kind of feel old soul in that way, a bit of like a baby boomer cutoff, but with this like millennial vibe and new age feel.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, because you do have that. You got that deep, or some people might call it the old soul. I sense that in you, the wisdom.
Yeah, and like I'm just gonna go full ham straight away. I kind of feel like I've been here many times before, and this is the playground to play. Had a few warm ups, got it wrong many times. Here to make it a little bit more right. Always going to be imperfect. So that's I guess the human experience. But yeah, here to have fun, here to play, and just serve and add value the best way I can, to be honest.
Love it, brother. I love it. So this inflammatory bowel disease that you really support people get on the other side of, I'm assuming that's from personal experience that you're now on this journey.
Yeah. Do you want to just take the mic for a little bit, or just
Man, you run with it. It's in your hand.
Yeah, for sure. So look, anyone who has experienced digestive distress, which by all accounts is usually most people, whether that's starting from heartburn to some kind of bloat or indigestion, down to then like cramping, full-blown pain, 10 out of 10, becoming debilitated, and also leaving a motor bowl on the scene when people actually start bleeding from the intestinal lining. Mm-hmm. So, my personal journey started about, really started at birth, but 20 years old was the first time I experienced pain. And as I'm sure most people have worked out, pain is this really interesting thing that we experience as human beings. It's almost unavoidable in many ways, but we then also cross into the kind of suffering paradigm as well.
Yes.
But it really started all out with pain for me. And the first time I experienced those symptoms, which was chronic pain, stabbing pain. Like you just got a 12-inch knife and jabbed it into my gut. There was no kind of warm up to me. It was like a dam had been cracked. Here we go. 20 years old, my whole life ahead of me. How are you? Holy shit, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of circumvent this whole story back to how I got involved with it, but it really started there. It was pain, discomfort, and really having my whole world shaken upside down. Because like I said, at 20 years old, you have everything ahead of you. You want to go clubbing, hang with your friends, eat burgers and fries, do all the things. And so from that point, within 24 hours, I kind of gone home and I'd rested. But within 24 hours, I started to notice blood in my stool. Whoa, something's wrong, right? And, at that stage, you're a little bit embarrassed, right? I can talk about anything today, but at that point, you're a little bit embarrassed. You don't know what's going on. But within 24 to 48 hours, I thought, who better to tell than my mum? Because my mother's lineage kind of had this genetic weakness, right? Genetics are a huge component of illness to some degree, but it's not a death sentence. Yes. By any stretch. And so I'd kind of said to her what was going on. And of course, I went down to the GPs. They asked me for a stool sample and it was pretty much nothing but blood. So the GP kind of came back out and said, we've rang Fremantle Hospital. They know you're coming. Get there.
Wow.
This is not normal, right?
Wow.
So it really was 0 to 100, foot to the floor.
Okay.
And I had spent 2.5 weeks in hospital. Initially, I was pumped full of antibiotics and IV hydrocortisone, steroids, just for, to calm inflammation. And really at that point was just born into the system that we have, which is allopathic medicine, right? This on the health side of things, very reductionist. It's all about, either increasing or enhancing or stimulating or suppressing something. I'm just going to go straight ahead and say it. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the most advanced things we've come across as a human species. So it has its merit.
Sure.
But I quickly learned that it was trying to take over all parts of my symptoms. It was a very disempowering system. One that, when I went in and asked questions, it was very much, this is the white coat authority. Here are your drugs. We don't know really what causes it. It's autoimmune. There's a lot of answers that, even at me at that level, at 20 years old, right? I'd been a personal trainer for a couple of years.
Okay.
And so I kind of said to the doc at that time, Doc, you're the expert. I'm just the PT. I don't really know that much. But this is a digestive disease, right? I kept using the word disease because that's the word that they use. Are you telling me my nutrition and my lifestyle have nothing to do with this? And it was like, straight blank answer. No, we don't know what causes it. It's autoimmune, but here's your steroids and immunosuppressive drugs. Here's your prescriptions. We'll see you in 3 months.
Wow.
Hope for the best. Fingers crossed, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that didn't really sit well with me because I've always been a very curious child. I've always questioned the status quo. Teachers, I used to always ask questions. Even my parents, they used to drive them nuts, right? Just being super, super curious.
Yeah.
And so that led me down the pathway of starting to go, well, what's going on here? Like, these are the people that I trust, of course, by virtue of just being a human being. You put your faith and trust into people that have studied their entire lives, or at least the large majority of their lives, to be the experts, right?
For sure.
That's what we do. I have a leaking tap. I ring up a plumber. I don't know how to fucking fix,
Yeah.
So it's that kind of mindset, if you will.
Yeah.
The dissonance, or the cognitive dissonance, the battle between kind of what my body was asking me to do and the wisdom that was there by virtue of pain. Again, when pain is present, I think that's the first thing to say, is that we're not listening hard enough as a species. We're not listening to pain and the wisdom of pain. We kind of see it as a bit of a nuisance, right? I'm depressed. Well, take a pill. I'm anxious. Take a benzo. I have pain. Take a Panadol. And that paradigm just has to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's probably merit, and there's probably, a section of that and parts of that where we can intelligently utilize pharmaceutical drugs. But for the most part, it's become, this media and pharmaceutical coercion to say on TV, oh, if you can't get to sleep, take this. If you can't wake up, take this. If your dick doesn't work, take this, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're in pain, again, take this. So I was battling kind of, again, two worlds and having this major cognitive dissonance. I wanted to get better, but I was also just locked into being a competitive bodybuilder. And I kept justifying this bodybuilding career by virtue of thinking, well, I love Arnie and pumping iron, as we all do, and the golden era. And I loved bodybuilding. I wasn't doing it because I was insecure or I was bullied and I wanted to get back at the bullies. But where my root, I'll call it a traumatic experience, came from was my first experience of powerlessness. And again, I know I'm going on a big tangent here, but I will try to circle it all around.
This is good. I love it.
So when I was really, really young, I was about 7 years old, I experienced extreme powerlessness. My father, I won't go into too much detail, but my father, more or less, he was a Navy man. He had a lot of PTSD. His father, I'm sure, had the whole thing. There's a lot of ancestral lines of pain, right? That just gets passed down.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child witnessing my father lashing out and me I couldn't do anything. I was 7 years old. I was quite skinny, had no muscle mass. He was enormous. I couldn't do a thing. Mm-hmm. So I felt, that was like a deep fucking wound, and my nervous system was activated. There was no soothing afterwards to kind of complete that loop and say, hey, daddy was just angry and this is what happened. And I'm so sad to see that it's all okay. It was kind of like an open loop, and that energy charge was kind of really etched in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward a couple of weeks and, I'm witnessing the first episode of Dragon Ball Z where these larger than life characters have this superhero archetype, right? Are the saviors, fight for justice, never give up, never show weakness, always fighting on, right?
Yes.
So as I'm sure you know, and many people out there, young minds are impressionable, super impressionable. We're like sponges as kids. So I took it upon that as, well, if I am like these people, I can save my brother. I can be the superhero. I can be the savior. So I very quickly as a young child fell into this superhero archetype of I'd be a super saiyan and I had special powers. I'd go in the backyard and kamehameha. I do all this crazy cool shit.
Yeah.
And I was a gymnast too. So that was kind of helping that physical, physical aptitude, so to speak.
Yes.
And that physical strength. And also things like resilience and discipline, all that. Fast forward to about 14, 15, my two older brothers, they were playing rugby. They were kind of into the gym. And that seemed like a cool idea because it's like, now I could do the real life thing, right?
Yep.
So I was flipping flipping burgers at McDonald's, and I'd saved enough money for my gym membership. I'd signed up, and of course, wouldn't you have it, I was at South Fremantle Gym, not too far from where I lived. And I remember just then seeing two-time Mr. Australia, Louis Maciel, still good friends today, squatting about 260 kilos like it was water, like it was nothing.
Wow.
Boom. And of course, again, 14 years old, young minds are impressionable. There was my ticket.
Sure.
There was my answer. There was my latch on.
Yep.
So that's what kind of started the whole bodybuilding thing. And, bodybuilding is not technically the healthiest sport. Knowing what I know now, I could have done a much better job, but knowing what I knew then, it was like, get on the seafood diet, which was, if you see food, you eat it. As much protein as possible. It was the whole protein, bodybuilding, protein, get as much as possible. Sure. And the training was brutal, brutal, national level. I mean, it's why I guess I progressed so quickly, and I was competing at the national level quite quickly, but it was brutal. And I always tell people, treat your body these days, treat your body like a car. Or if you're imagining health, how are you driving your car? How are you servicing it? How are you driving? How are you steering it? How are you getting in it? How are you cleaning it, maintaining it, yada, yada, yada.
Yes.
And I was doing none of that. I was just thrashing it, redlining the engine, burning the candle from both ends, burning all my Jing energy, whatever way you want to kind of go about it. I was trashing my body. So that's why kind of 5, 6, 7 years later, by the age of 2021, I started to get these symptoms because, eventually the straw that's going to break the camel's back is going to appear itself, right? We're only as strong as the weakest link.
Yep. And you went straight into deep bodybuilding at 14.
14, 15, 16 was like the training component. By about 18, I'd started using anabolic steroids. So that's like another thing, right? Because I wanted to be competitive. So it started quite young, and just the level of intensity that I was so focused with to, of course, build this body, which again, I love bodybuilding. I loved everything about it. I was so attracted to it and just the hard work and the discipline. But really at, again, a deeper level, we got to kind of filter down to the root. I was really trying to be this superhero, not just for my brother, but really for everyone. I fell into this archetype very early. Yeah. So kind of circling forward now again, I'm battling two things. My body's breaking down, but I don't want to stop because I'm locked. I have this mindset, right? You're locked. So you're kind of battling.
Yeah.
And, if we just cut a really long story short so we can move into other things, it was the fact that my body was deteriorating. I was kind of half interested in health and preaching health, but really the bodybuilding thing was just overtaking.
Yeah.
And I was never really addressing. And I always explain it to people like this. So if anyone's out there listening that has what we call a chronic disease or even something acute, it's a bit like filling a glass of water up. You can only fill it up so much before, you hit that stretch of surface tension, and eventually that last drop of water is just going to go poof, and it all spills over. So in order to get your body back to a state of what we would call even homeostasis or a fair level of health, it's going to require a bit of work because you've broken the seal. Or if you imagine blowing up a balloon, right? Eventually one atom at one area on that balloon, eventually when the pressure or the force, whatever you want to again label it as, is going to break that link. And you're going to see damage. So in order to heal and reverse that, and this is where we come into just logical sense when we kind of have the conversation about health and reverse all of these things. It takes a little bit of a bit of work. It's not just going to be click your, if it is fantastic, click your fingers a couple of days and your symptoms go down. But normally it takes weeks to months to reverse this damage.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
And it wasn't until too late where I needed to have my entire large intestine cut out and fitted with a colostomy bag.
Damn.
Where I kind of just work it out and woke up to my own pain and my own traumas and what I actually needed to heal in order to get healthy. So there was this kind of whole huge backstory. I just wanted to go in for people to.
Thank you for that. No, that's massive, and I can see why you're so driven to do the work you do now, man.
100%. 100%.
So what advice would you have for someone? So imagine there's someone in your position, the position you were at 20 years old right now with those same symptoms. What would you say to them? Would you say initially go get checked out, maybe intervention, because there is that at that level, they may need that surgery, they might not need that, but then they can rehabilitate through more natural methods.
100%. There is space for both worlds to coexist. This is the sometimes things we work. The world is polarities, right? We have yin and yang, a male, female, good and bad. So we kind of have this natural pharmaceutical war going on.
Yes.
Which when, again, you come to the middle ground, you're going to find more of a truth. And that is that both parties can coexist.
Yes.
To the first part of your question, what would I do to my personal 20-year-old self? I'd slap him in the face to get his attention. That's what I would do.
That's fair.
But to someone listening, again, it really depends where they're at, right, on the kind of health scale, because you're either kind of acute or subacute levels. Then you get into more chronic. You might have had it for 1, 2, 3 years or 20 years. And then really the degenerate stages is where like it becomes life-threatening, which is where I go to.
Okay.
And so there's probably a point where I call it the point of no return, where no matter how many herbs and how much fasting and how much healing and how much meditation, how much breath, like anything you could possibly try, you're just going to need a surgery, possibly.
Absolutely.
And there's no definitive answers to who and who won't, because I know people that are brought back from the dead that are, either helped or just, again, stories, many that have come back from the dead. Like you'd think they would need a surgery that didn't, that were able to get themselves out. And also people that were kind of half bad, but just decided they also want to get the surgery. They're like, I'd rather just get it over and done with, cut that disease part out and then work on my health. So again, both parties can coexist. It really depends on the individual's sovereignty and their choice. And yes, probably also the, I would say, I won't say the opinion, but just at least the perception of, in this case, if it's IBD, of the gastroenterologist, because, we have technology of things like sigmoidoscopies and colonoscopies or endoscopies, right? Depending on how far they're going and which end. So, this is where we need to empower people again to take control of their health, because most people out there don't need a surgery, for the ones that have had it. I can confidently say that. Most people don't. The human body is incredible. And we have normalized sickness so much on this planet, it's beyond a joke. But again, it also comes with both sides. People need to take their responsibility and ownership and sovereignty back.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If we get stuck in the paradigm of victim mentality, or the victim archetype, which is, I'm never wrong, all my choices are morally justified, and I'm right, and I'm entitled to sympathy. And I fell into that trap. So I kind of say it with grace. I'm not saying it to shame anyone. Yep. I would pull the Crohn's card, or the look, at some point it was colitis, then they re-diagnosed me, so I'd pull the IBD card here and the IBD card for me. And it's just so disempowering. It's so disempowering. And I understand why people fall into it, because again, I've been there myself. But at the end of the day, you ask anyone that's sick, what do you want? And they'll say, my health back. And what would you do to get there? And the answer is always the same every single time: anything.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove, because there will be all the excuses and the fear and, well, I don't know what else I could do, or I've tried everything. I've tried the keto diet reset. I've tried this. I've tried everything. That's also another common experience. I've tried everything. Yes. And I might have actually tried 2 things for like 2 weeks. And like, that's not trying everything. Right?
Yeah, we've heard that before.
We've all heard that before. And it's like, if you're going to go 40 years of your life, sometimes I work with people in their 40s, 50s and 60s. If you've gone that long driving your car and you've never serviced it, tuned it, taken care of it, nourished it, nurtured it, loved it, healed it, listened to it, it's not going to be a 2-week journey.
No.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Truth. Yeah.
So, I know we've kind of got a bit of a tangent, but I guess it's all relevant.
Good.
But what would I say to someone, kind of on the whole, is listen. Listen, because the fragility of life and I guess, the recognition of our own mortality is the very thing that helps people wake up.
Yes.
And I always say, and I heard this somewhere, but I really use it now, as time compresses, clarity increases. Because when you get sick, there's this old, I think it's like an Indian proverb. It's like, a healthy man has all but 1,000 wishes. A sick man has all but one.
Yes.
And so when we get into that state of pain or extreme chronic health challenges, whatever it is, I don't care if it's arthritis, stage 4 cancer, or Crohn's and colitis, or it's something in IBD, time starts to compress. Our mortality becomes more apparent, and all of a sudden the veil starts to lift on what's important. The problem is that, again, we're in a system and we're on this planet right now. It's a very interesting time where we're having to kind of unlearn old paradigms, old ways of being. If you look at pharmaceutical medicine, it's only been around for approximately 110 years. The Federal Reserve and kind of the Rockefeller Carnegie medicine only came in the early 20th century. So it's like, that's the new shit.
It is.
And if you look at the Dunning-Kruger effect, we're kind of like in that first period. We're like, we know everything because we invented anesthetic and antibiotics. And it's like, man, we got a fucking long way to go to get to that part where we go, oh, we fucked up. And now let's mature into the more that wise part, right?
Yes.
So again, I always say pharmaceutical drugs are amazing. If I'm in a car crash, I don't want someone aligning my chakras, right? I want a surgeon, anesthetic, and probably a lot of morphine or fentanyl, right? So, again, just kind of back to that question before we kind of, I guess, move on, but it's to listen. There is innate wisdom inside of this beautiful physical vessel. It's beyond the physicality, but certainly in terms of senses and our sensory perception and what pain tries to teach us, which is give me attention. I'm in need of attention. And like I said, the cross path between where the planet is right now is then having the right education so people can empower themselves, learn how to heal themselves, tend to their own pain. And that could be beyond the physical too. That can still be traumatic pain or emotional pain.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
The amount of suffering on the planet. I mean, Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind. His stats, he's read the literature. It's like depression is up 20% since I think it's 2005. Yeah. That's disgusting as a species. Like we're so much better than that.
Yeah. With all the technology we've got in the world, like we see these things going up. And man, I don't know if you know this about me, but I worked in the medical industry for a bunch of years. I trained as a combat medic for the military.
There you go.
I've seen the whole, I worked in operating theatre for a bunch of years. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. And again, I totally agree. There's that place for all that stuff, but
it's brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah, but the vast majority of people are far more powerful than they realize. And there's so much available for people. And that's why I was so inspired to get you on here, man, just to bring people's awareness to what's actually available. So what is one of the biggest misconceptions you see people having about their ability to heal?
Beautiful question. The number one is that the system we live in right now focuses on the wrong system.
Okay.
As you know, being that you're trained medic, we have this obsession with blood. And the venous system is a system of continuity. It cannot change, or it shouldn't be changed. It should always be in homeostasis, right? That's why I have high blood pressure, low blood pressure, high blood sugar, low blood sugar, hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism, right? We want to be in that balance, harmony.
Yes.
So blood is always trying to be tightly regulated, whether that's osmotic pressure, blood pressure, sodium, potassium, like everything in. Drop a marble in a bowl. What does it want to do? Always find the middle ground. Right? Again, this idea of nature in harmony, two sides fluxing.
Yeah.
And the medical establishment is unfortunately, again, brilliant in ways, but as unfortunately focus on this system. And if I had $1 for the amount of people that have come to me and said, my blood work is perfect, my doctor says there's nothing wrong with you, but let me tell you, I'm fucking sick or I have problems and I know on a deep gut level something is wrong, but I don't have answers.
Yes.
It's because, the misconception is that we are largely focused on the wrong system. We are focused on the system of the kitchen, the one that feeds cells, not the one that cleans cells, not the one that eliminates. And that is the giant lymphatic system. And, one of my great mentors, I've had many mentors, but one of the great ones, Dr. Robert Morse, he was the one to really fit that last cog of all these missing pieces so they would all turn. I go, oh, it all makes sense now. And that is the kidney, adrenal, and lymphatic connection. We could also chuck the skin because that's really your third kidney. People don't realize this is mesh. It's not enclosed.
Interesting.
It breathes. Right?
Okay, this is interesting.
100%. So when you look at the eliminative organs, people talk like detoxification. I think our liver, and it's like the liver is not a detoxification organ whatsoever. Yes, there might be transmutation of chemistry, but the eliminative organs, the giant septic tanks, are your left kidney and right kidney. Left kidney drains the left brain all the way down to the little toe, and the right brain to the right toe. And your adrenal glands sit on top of those kidneys, and they're the ones that power them. They're the ones that have, communicate with neurotransmitters. Again, keep this sodium potassium pump. They keep blood pressure moving. So when you think about even just a simple example of, say, a PVC pipe or even a toilet, that's a good example because that's, again, our eliminative bit of furniture of a house, right?
Yes.
If your toilet system or the septic system underneath your house all of a sudden had a block, and you every single day went to the toilet and kept flushing, all of a sudden that's going to have backflow, right? You're going to have shit coming out of your bowl and not into the floor. And spilling out, we'll call it into the body, into your house. A bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge there.
Yes.
And, what I also didn't realize that I've come to realize now too, is that we have, and, even global bodies now are starting to catch up and recognize this, like the International Society of Nephrology, right? Nephrology being the study of kidneys and renal function. Is that between every cell in our body, and we have about 50 to 100 trillion, science is out on the fence, but between 50 to 100 trillion. And I'll just say real quickly, to wrap your head around that number, I always tell people, if you took 100 trillion and you imagine the MCG on grand final day for a footy, like full crowd, 100,000, a billion of those.
Damn.
From head to toe. Right?
Well, that puts it in perspective.
100%. And no two cells touch. So even though we like to think we're flesh and bone, everything's all touching, nothing ever touches. Even when we try to touch ourselves, we're not feeling our body. We're feeling the electromagnetic repulsion. right? So I always have a joke with couples too. It's like you've never actually touched each other. You never even know what a kiss feels like. It's sensory perception, right?
I love it, man. That's so interesting.
And yeah, so the cool thing is that when you look into the body, you know, we pull down the hierarchy of biology, right? Whether it's like the environment, then the organism, then the organ, then we go to the tissue, and then kind of to the cells and molecules and atoms, right? We can go down the ladder. And when you're looking at kind of this cellular level, there's space between them all. Cells aren't like clumped together per se. They don't hold, they're not touching. They swim in a river from head to toe. Even bones are alive, and it's not dead tissue.
Yep.
And between these cell spaces is what we call the interstitium, or the interstitial spaces, the space between cells. And there's only two fluids that flow behind in these cells, apart from water. And one is blood. That's pretty easy. That's our nutrition. That's the goodies. That's the deliverance. And the other is lymphatic fluid, or lymph. And this actually comprises 3/4 of the interstitial space. So you're talking about 75% of the space, which is garbage, and our immunology, our immune system, our garbage disposal system, versus the venous system of delivery, which is about 20 to 25%.
Oh my goodness. Really?
So you're talking about an enormous garbage system, yeah, and immune regulating, way that interacts with our environment. You know, I kind of dismantled the whole COVID thing, which is another situation, but our immune system, our environment, and all these microbes are of us. If we were sterile, we'd be dead. Back in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, like before we were born, but I remember kind of with research is that back in that time, there was this huge antibiotic thing, like antibiotics, right? And again, antibiotics are great when they're needed acutely. But now look at what we have is antibiotic resistance, immune systems that are just absolutely wrecked, gut microbiomes that are absolutely wrecked, because we're not interacting with this harmonious, you know, lowest form of biological activity with our high biological activity. And we're attacking the wrong thing. We're not looking after, again, just the quintessential intelligence of this universe.
What does that look like? What can you explain? Like, what does that dance look like between the two?
Well, it's relative, right? I mean, my system is different to your system, and I'm not going to kind of segregate or kind of box all humans into one thing, because there's just 7.8 billion people, right?
Yeah. What is it for you?
Respect for nature and harmony. And that doesn't mean if you have that, you're going to be in healthy shape. I don't want to kind of come across that way.
Of course.
And look, just kind of backtracking to the whole lymphatic kidney connection is where, again, just our paradigms right now need to be broken down, because they're 95, this is a study in the Lancet, 95% of the world have a health problem.
Yeah.
Again, we're just normalizing it. It's not normal. The human default is healthy.
Yes. Yes.
Alive, vital. And I've been on my deathbed. You know, people can go and see photos. I was on my literal deathbed. There's no way I should be on this phone call. No way. But I am. So I count my blessings.
Yeah. But
in the health that I'm in now, and realizing what I know now, and discovering, and also then implementing, shit is wrong. I was going to say it bluntly. Shit is wrong, and we all need to take the responsibility and come together. You know, in love and compassion, understanding our differences, all of it. Like that's, you know, it's really love. It's the unity of bringing two poles together. That's what's going to take us, I think, to the next paradigm, which is, again, in the medical establishment, inviting more naturalistic approaches, which is just the health paradigm. If I'm going to say this very, very confidently and bluntly.
You're good.
I know someone's just jumping between things. If you have any symptom of digestive distress, I'm just going to keep it strictly to IBD. If you have any symptom of digestive distress, even heartburn, and a medical doctor prescribes you a drug without asking you once about your nutrition or your lifestyle, you should be done for medical malpractice, as far as I'm concerned. The amount of people that have been destroyed with, you know, PPIs, protein pump inhibitors, or Nexium, and just rubbish that's causing more problems, either just Band-Aid. Because, and again, I'm not shaming anyone, or I hope I'm not coming across that way, but this is how serious it is, because it's people's mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and children that are either being maimed or killed because of a system that is completely broken. Completely broken and needs a revamp. But we need to come together. It's not the doctor's fault. It's not nurses' fault. It's not hospitals' fault. It's just systems and cogs that are in place that are fucking outdated. It's like running dial-up internet today. How stupid would that be? It just doesn't work. It worked at a time. Do you remember when pictures used to download one bar at a time? We'd be like, and it was like, the internet. And now if that happened, we'd be like, for fuck's sake, Telstra, where's the end? You know what I mean? Like, it's just outdated.
Yep.
So
Oh,
we're brilliant. We're a brilliant species. We're so smart, but God damn it, we're so stupid sometimes. And we just need to continue to do things like this, voice and raise awareness, but take action.
yes, yes. I love that, man. I agree with this 1,000%. This is such an exciting conversation to be having, brother. So, say for example, someone is out in the world right now and they're getting mild symptoms, like they're getting a bit of heartburn. Like I suffered with that for years. I didn't actually know what it was about. I just thought it was a bit of reflux or something, but it went on and on and on. So say someone has something like that, they're experiencing little symptoms, they're getting a bit of feedback there. What do you encourage them to start doing as far as a daily practice goes, or is it that simple?
Yeah, I want to be simple, but sometimes it's like you can't be simple because, again, everyone's an individual. So,
of course,
I'll first speak to the fact that there's an element of malnutrition, but I'm not going to talk about that because malnutrition is still a thing. If you don't have the micronutrients and all I would call the little helpers to build your building, to keep your organism optimally functioning, that can be a problem. And that can show up many ways. Because if you're lacking certain cofactors and vitamins and minerals and enzymes and things like that, you may be then getting dysfunction and symptoms appearing. So that is one thing that I'm going to speak to, but not speak to yet. Yes. The other thing is chronic dehydration and metabolic acidosis. That's really the key thing that I think should be the conversation that we start talking about right now, because the alkaline community kind of got it half right, but and I'm still learning every day. It's not like I'm an expert and I have all the answers. In fact, the more I know, the less I know. Mm-hmm. But most people's problems stem from chronic stress and chronic dehydration.
Yes.
And that can then manifest in so many different ways. So, I'll speak to first the stress. And it's funny, I was reading a book not long ago, and it was actually a Hungarian endocrinologist that coined the term stress when it first came about, like in medical literature. Uh-huh. And he actually ended up saying, my English was terrible. He said, if I had my time again, I would have said strain. Which kind of reframes the whole concept of what we consider stress to be. Because now I think if you say the word stress, most people get fucking anxiety just hearing the word, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true.
But if you reframe that to the word strain, we can start to think of it a bit like, say, a gym or a backpack. And people can start to ask themselves, how much strain or how much load am I taking on, which is probably depleting a lot of my life force, depleting a lot of my, what we'll call, I want to simplify this. We'll call it just the load that is draining my resources.
Yes.
And it's a bit also too, like if you're driving a car, and we'll call healthy the way that, say, a normally 65-year-old grandma drives it, which is just, lean and clean and the kind of person you want to buy a car off, as opposed to the hooligan who's like burning out, thrashing the tires, blowing pistons left, right, and center.
Yes.
So that's one thing to consider is like, for the users out there, how much strain or how much load am I taking on? If I have a water bottle of resources, how many holes am I just plugging in it where it's just draining? Because stress is a part of life, or strain is a part of life. Yeah. And I always say this, it's not about stopping the ocean waves, but learning how to surf. Mm. If you saw anyone trying to go to a beach and stopping the ocean waves, stopping the force of the universe, you'd be like, dude, it's fucking crazy. Yep. So what makes more sense? Avoiding stress, which is one thing, like it is a lot of merit. And again, working at how many holes you're unplugging, or increasing your capacity to hold that strain. Mm. Another example, and this is like kind of a tangent, but it's still relative, is like the whole COVID thing right now, which is, that's again, another story for another day, but what makes more sense? Run and hide from the lowest form of biological activity, or improve the capacity to which your body operates. Mm. In a gym, would you try and avoid as many machines and dumbbells as possible? Or would you try and build your tendon, connective tissue, and muscular strength, speed, and power to withstand everything in that gym? Mm. And this is what we call hormetic stress or hormesis, which is the body's ability to adapt to a positive stress or eustress.
Yes.
But most people, unfortunately, are in distress. We talked about just before the recording of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Most people are just in fight or flight survival.
Yes.
So now, of course, they're tanking their immune systems. Their brain chemistry is just in complete disarray. They're not coherent. Their brain and heart's off. It's not in 1 hertz. So that's coherence. It's like, the freeway's smooth. There's no traffic jams. And I forgot what we were speaking about originally. I was going to try and circumvent this, but people are in just absolute disarray. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're weakening the human species. We're weakening cellular integrity. That's both, cell structure and function. The cellular strength If you think about like a Roman Empire, is it like thick with concrete walls? Has it got 10,000 mithril armored soldiers with big steels, with Valerian steel?
Yep.
That's a Game of Thrones joke. Or do you have a weakened, wooden walls and dudes that are drunk with just a pair of shorts and a wooden shield and a stick, right? That's what we could kind of consider our visual representation of our immune system. That's the structure. And the function is how efficient. Is between two lines some squiggly, random, chaotic line, or is it a straight line? It's efficient. It's proficient. It knows what it's doing. And ironically, a lot of that process is impacted, that's what we're talking about, is impacted by the chronic strain and stress and metabolic acidosis or dehydration. Things, when I say metabolic acidosis and dehydration, it's very easy to understand. There's only two sides of life, and there's only two sides of chemistry. There's base and acid, right? So as we become dehydrated, that's that stiff, pain. It creates what's called a cationic environment. Everything's sticky, agglomerated, coagulated. There's even, ironically, blood tests for that. But everything becomes tight. And that's why, if you see the natural life cycle, babies are so limber and mobile, and there's so much fluidity. And old people, when they're about to hit their death, are old and tight.
Yeah, interesting.
The thing is not about living forever. It's about the quality of the journey.
Yes.
How much fluidity, how's that coming back in a little bit now, is how mobilized and fluid is that interstitial space? How well is your cellular integrity? How well does everything from electrical impulses to blood to lymphatic fluid, how well does it flow?
Yes.
If you start to kink that backyard garden hose and kind of visualize that in your body, whether that's by virtue of stress and strain and your loading or dietary, lifestyle, everything, that's when you're going to see things fall to shit. That's when you're going to see symptoms manifest, dis-ease appear. And it does not mean you can then not reverse that and come back to that place of homeostasis.
Man, I love that. And so I'm on a huge coffee fast. I was a coffee addict for so many years. And
Me too.
Yeah. But yeah, and I thought I needed it for my energy. I've stopped drinking it. I'm obviously feeling so much more hydrated because one of the huge factors of caffeine is the hydration or dehydration that goes along with it.
To some effect, yeah.
To some effect. Well, for me at least, I really noticed it.
You noticed it, yeah.
Big time. So, but my energy without coffee is just, it's a new energy. It's something I've never experienced before. It's sustainable. It's the most incredible thing. So
it feels like yours.
Yeah, that's right. Would you say what you're talking about here, is it just people going and drinking more water? Is it as simple as that?
So let me first speak to the coffee thing. If that's okay with you. Then I'll speak to the water thing. Yeah. Please. So with the caffeine thing, again, I love coffee. Yeah. Coffee's, again, I never people sometimes shame things into good and bad. Everything is of this world. It has a place in it. Of course. It's how we utilize it. You can drink too much water, you suffer from hyponatremia, and then you dilate your electrolytes and die. Poison's in the dose. Yes. However, yes, with the caffeine, we're living those very masculine, catabolic, acidic lifestyles. Look at the planet as a whole. We're just consumerism and Western capitalism, like pollution and destruction, and we're just not, again, in harmony. That's on the kind of the environmental global level. And caffeine and coffee is kind of the thing that drives that, right? Because it's great for capitalism, and we feel jacked, and we go, right? Yeah. But again, that's like burning the candle from both ends. Yeah. So if people can just have responsible use, I'll have a coffee maybe once a fortnight or once a week if I'm busy, so to speak. Or just enjoy I just enjoy the taste. It's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Do your thing. But as you know, when you're reliant on it, you're thrashing those adrenal steroids, you're stimulating your central nervous system, you're stimulating your guts, you're stimulating your liver. Everything is a stimulation. And a smart, wise man once said, for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Yep. So again, if we're consistently redlining and pushing that accelerator and not engaging the brake and fluxing between those two poles, that's when you see the burnout. I can't get up and function without my morning coffee. And it's just a slippery slope to deteriorated health. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of that thing on the whole there. With water, water's great. No question. I'm not saying don't drink water, but water's a solvent. It's a neutral liquid, right? So it helps the hydration process, no question. But what we really want to speak about is electrolytes. Okay. Because electrolytes and that electrical activity, we kind of speak about electrical impulses. Me moving my hands all requires electricity. We are electrical beings, wire yourself up to an ECG. What's that? EEG, electroencephalogram, or ECG, right? So when we think about hydration, it's an electrical process.
Okay. Right.
And so when we think about electrolytes, we want to think about like fresh fruits, fresh berries, all those rich, water-rich foods, vegetables, cold-pressed juices, with then, yes, water and herbal teas and things like that, things that are really going to help that hydration process.
Uh-huh. Okay, interesting. So the electrolyte is the part that we really need. So, and like you said, if you drink too much water, you can actually dilute yourself,
Yeah,
dilute
100%.
down when you can't function.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. That's fascinating stuff. This is such a great conversation, brother. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, same.
This is so interesting, man. My mind is going 1,000 miles an hour now without coffee.
Good. Yeah, I love that. Sorry, if you don't mind, I'd just love to speak to that too.
Yeah, please.
What I was on the tail end, I just forgot. That is again where most people are getting their pseudo energy from, is this stimulation. Right? The science goes into slowing down the adenosine receptor. We increase steroid function, dopamine. A lot of those things. Again, it's very yang. It's very masculine.
Mm-hmm.
But when people get off their coffee, and hopefully not too bad withdrawals, there's ways to titrate and get off that, but I won't go into that. Is that then what you're feeling now is true energy?
Yes.
And in a cell, if we go even lower on that level, we have like the organelle level. And the organelle level is like the little organs inside of a cell. And the easiest way of visualizing that is a big Amazon factory and all the people that work inside it. They're the they're the things that make the factory work. So the cell is the factory, the warehouse, people inside of the organelles. And when you look at what's called the mitochondria and the way that we get our energy, true energy, which is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that's our currency of energy. That's true energy, cellular respiration. Mm-hmm. So kind of the currency we use, our $50 bills, right?
Yep.
ATP, ADP, and AMP, adenosine tri-di and monophosphate. That is our true currency of energy. And it's what most people are lacking because they're burning their adrenal steroids. They're burning dopamine stores and adrenal neurotransmitters of dopamine. It's like a turbo. They're just constantly thrashing it. And that's why we have, everyone's meeting their caloric needs. Oh, but I'm eating 2,500 calories a day, but I'm so tired. It's this low electrical function because we're so burnt out. So I just wanted to speak on that tail end.
Love that, man.
But we've all experienced it. Again, I'm not, there's no shame in it. We're all fucking human.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. We all do dumb shit. It's just what ownership do you want to take to, again, reverse and lead that better level of health. So
love that.
I just wanted to kind of squeeze that in. So
that's phenomenal, man. This is so fantastic. At least for me, I don't know if it's resonating with anyone else, but I'm taking a lot from it.
I hope the viewers are, yeah.
people will love this, man. I know my audience are going to get so much from this.
Awesome.
So increase fruit, increase juices, increase things like obviously water, but not making that your main source of hydration.
Yeah.
Herbal teas, that great stuff.
Yeah.
Now, in your bio, you spoke about breath, you spoke about fungi, you spoke about play. We're going to go straight to the drink, since we're talking about drinks, the cacao. I love cacao, man. I love cacao. When I saw that this was I saw that you were the founder of the Cacao Collective, and I was like, whoa, what is going on here? What is this beautiful, crazy...
this lovely entity that has been
What
created,
is this? What is this? So expand on this and expand on some of the benefits of cacao, because it's the rage now.
Yeah, it really is. And I'd really love to do my best to speak justice to something that is just so dear to myself and so many now. Mm-hmm. I'd first like to speak to kind of not so much the dark side, but again, just where we're at as a species in a society. Mm-hmm. If I was actually initiated by a Venezuelan shaman not long ago with tobacco. Mm-hmm. And when I say the word tobacco, people again think cigarette smoking, lung cancer, lighter up, smoke or break, right? It's just cultural, social things that we've just been so accustomed to.
Yeah.
But most people don't realize how tobacco was actually used traditionally in the Amazon and its medicinal benefits and its power. Uh-huh. And again, also its responsible use. But of course, like everything, we adulterate it. We make these cigarette things. We give people fucking lung cancer. We make $1 billion industry. Whoops.
Yep.
So the reason I'm saying that is because cacao has largely had the same thing done to it. Mother Earth is being raped. And the adulteration of cacao comes by virtue of taking a plant which is already perfect in its matrix, perfect the way the universe or God, Allah, Jesus, Buddha, whoever you use, designed it, and in its perfect matrix, and we adulterate not only just the plant, but the humans that then harvest it, for the final product becomes a shitty Cadbury block of chocolate at Woolworths shopping center.
Yes.
And from that origin to the final chain is just disgusting. Mm-hmm. And It's just time people, I feel, were educated. I really want to speak that level of just, I get angry sometimes too. I feel Mother Earth's pain. I tune into her and I'm just like, fuck, I'm so sorry. We're so dumb. We make such stupid mistakes. And it's probably we need to do that in order to work out how we can return to wholeness and nature and love.
Yes.
So now that that's out of the way, because, chocolate product, when we say chocolate, we think candy and chocolate bars, right?
Mm.
But the reality is there's very little regulation in the chocolate industry, number one. It's highly exploited, and people would just be disgusted if they knew the conditions people work in to harvest that chocolate.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrendous. But also the fact that it's about 10% to 15% cacao. Mm. And it's not even just cacao, because the word cacao, cacao, refers to Theobroma cacao, the genus, the actual plant itself. Okay. By the time it becomes chocolate, it's been pressed, heat treated, it's been conched, it's been alkalized, it's gone through Dutching, it's gone through all these processes that becomes cocoa, COCOA. Mm-hmm. So you have very little of the plant's unique properties and energetic properties and beautiful benefits that cacao actually offers in, again, this multi-billion-dollar industry that jacks people's calories up, hijacks their brain chemistry. I mean, serotonin and dopamine, give it to me, baby, even though it's oxytocin. You're getting so much unnatural response from chocolate. Mm. And, just quickly speaking to that, even when we start to get on cacao now, we notice their chocolate cravings disappear.
For sure.
Because they're returning back to the original plant. So, cacao, Theobroma cacao, theos coming from the Greek etymology, meaning God, and broma being food, which, translates to literally food of the gods. There's traces of theobromine, which is one of the alkaloids in this plant, back to the Ecuadorian days, I think even Inca days. We're looking like 3,500 to 4,000 BC. Yeah. So this has been consumed in those kind of Mesoamerican regions. You think like Mexico and Guatemala and like Ecuador, all those, that chunk of North and South America, Peru, things like that. So it's been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And really, the cacao plant is a very simple plant. It's feminine by nature. We kind of think of caffeine as more masculine, yang we want to do. Cacao kind of brings us back in. It's still stimulating. There's still some nice stimulating properties, and I'll go into those in a second. But it's one that really brings us back home, one to our hearts, mm-hmm. and our love and connection, mm-hmm. to presence, to that flow state. So we don't wake up at 9 a.m. to our phones and then go the whole day long with the kids and the this and that. And then by 6:34, where did the day go, right?
Yes.
It allows us to come more into our bodies, more into presence, mm-hmm. connected more to our emotional body. Most people are prisoner of their mind because they're only living in their mind. They're worried about bills and surviving and the economy and this, but they're so disconnected from their bodies. Mm-hmm. So cacao is a beautiful way, when we introduce that. It's a bit like the gym. You want to utilize it and have a journey with it. It's not just a one-time thing. Yes. You want to really, like anything, go on a journey with it and allow it to support you. Mm-hmm. On more of a physiological level, it's a beautiful plant. It's like nature's Lipitor and nature's antidepressant. It's like nature's anti-SSRI. Sorry, SSRI, not anti-SSRI. Okay. On a safety note, people that are on antidepressants, first generation, and they should know this because their doctor should be educating them, but they are monoamine oxidase inhibitors, first generation antidepressants. Mm-hmm. And the tyramine in cacao does contraindicate. So it's just, you got to be gentle with it because certain dosages can contraindicate with brain chemistry. For those that are on second generation antidepressants, like things like Lexapro, fluoxetine, things like that, they will know it. There's a contraindication with tryptophan because tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin. And when you're looking at SSRIs and their function, the way they work in the brain, and we still actually know how they fully work, there could be contraindications. So for anyone listening that is on first or second generation SSRIs, please consult your healthcare professional. I do really care about people's safety and health. So
appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, but even at the lower doses, they should be absolutely fine. This is more about the higher doses because it's a very, very potent plant. This is not your Cadbury chocolate. Uh-huh. Speaking to more of why it makes us feel so good, that first sip is just that oof, beautiful. Yes. I'd probably just like to speak to kind of 3 compounds for your users that they can go, oh, wow, that's so interesting. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Yeah, please do.
The first one is theobromine, which is a cardiovascular stimulant, as opposed to a central nervous system like things like caffeine or coffee, right? Mm. And the great thing about a cardiovascular stimulant is it works on the nitric oxide pathways, and nitric oxide acts as a vasodilator. So if you imagine a tube with a 10 centimeter diameter, now it might be talking 15 centimeters, right? Mm. Arbitrary example.
I love it.
So that's what gives us that nice in your body opening up effect, right? Most people, again, are so stressed and tight and dehydrated. It gives us that nice opening. And that's what kind of attributes the spiritual side of cacao to its heart opening effects. It's known as a heart opener, right? Connected with this beautiful thing that's in the center of our chest, our hearts, this beating pump.
Yeah.
So theobromine acts as kind of a smooth muscle relaxant. It's great for the endothelium, so which is kind of like the walls of, if you imagine taking away your physical body and just seeing things like veins and venols and arteries and arterioles and the capillary bed, it's that vascular tree, right? It's helping nourish and nurture that system.
Amazing.
So it's a beautiful stimulant that gets you into your body, not like the jittering up in your head and the anxieties and the stimulation. It still does have a tiny bit of caffeine as well. So it's still going to get you up a little bit, but it's very, very minimal. And good cacao should be very low caffeine.
Perfect.
So that's kind of number one. Number two is anandamide, or ananda, as they would kind of say it in Hinduism, which in Sanskrit translates literally to the word bliss.
Wow. And
so it's our own endogenous, and endo meaning from within the body, exo meaning from without, but it's our own endogenous blissful molecule. And, runners experience, they'll say after 20 miles of a marathon, they're like literally high. There's pain, like no quote, there's lactic acid and stuff, but they get into that runner's high, right?
Yes.
And that has an endogenous molecule, anandamide, which, funnily enough, attaches to the same brain structures as THC. Tetrahydrocannabinol for the, from cannabis.
Yes.
So it's what gives us that nice mood enhancing, lifting. I feel really blissful and euphoric, right? These are psychoactive, not psychedelic, psychoactive compounds. And the second to that in terms of the psychoactive, so theobromine, more of that cardiovascular stimulation. Anandamide is that more blissful, euphoric. It can actually also modulate the perception to pain. So people have like just slight discomfort. It can also really help with acute pain. And the last is a bit of a tongue twister, phenylethylamine. Phenylethylamine, or PEA, if you think like a P, PEA for short. And apart from the fact it's like a biohacker's wet dream,
okay.
Again, it's like perfectly embedded into the cacao matrix, right?
Oh my goodness.
And I kind of think of phenylethylamine as a bit of like, what do you call those loudspeakers? The something megaphones? Yeah, like a megaphone.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of like amplifies brain chemistry that's already there, but also modulates it as well. So phenylethylamine is also a molecule we produce naturally. Very, very similar. And we see spikes in MRIs when the feelings of, say, falling in love, having sex, a really beautiful meal with the family or friends. It's a feel-good neurotransmitter, but it also kind of amplifies and gives volume to other ones like your acetylcholines or dopamine especially. Again, there's a bit of stimulation there.
Yes.
So you have these amazing, amazing, amazing compounds. Now, that is also just beside the fact that it's abundant in iron. I think it's about 13.5 to 40 milligrams per 100 grams. So it's one of the highest sources of iron. And, the biggest three deficiencies in the world right now are magnesium, iron, and zinc.
Wow.
So the second one is also full of magnesium, which is brilliant for the nervous system, brilliant for stress, brilliant for calming us. So it's like we have these beautiful stimulation experiences, but with the calmness. It's very supportive in that way.
I love that.
There's also, good amounts of calcium, trace amounts of chromium, manganese, and an abundance of antioxidants.
My goodness, man, that is
so it is just a power. Yeah, like this blend is just amazing. And that's what gets me so like angry, upset, but then also I just want to share the magic and love, because it's like chocolate is not the thing. And how many people are just like, I'm a chocoholic. And they could be enjoying something so much more delicious, powerful, healthy. It's going to be cardioprotective. So everyone that's got a high, it's again, nature's Lipitor. Please, of course, side note, safety. If you're on high blood pressure medication, it can drop it very, very low because of that vasodilation. So please be careful. But it is a power-packed plant. Beautiful, magic. There's a spiritual component too. So I could keep talking, but I'm not going to.
I can tell. Like you could fill a day up at least. Easy.
Absolutely. So that's kind of why we started Cacao Collective, because, people kept coming to me, and my cacao journey started with cacao powder, which again is kind of still an adulterated form.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah, they take it through pressing. They remove a lot of the fat. They usually heat treat it and alkalize it as well in potassium chloride. So they do all these things, and then they might add a little bit of fat and a little bit of like liqueur vanilla bean to give that chocolatey taste. So it's all the ways you can separate and sell. It's again very capitalistic the way we rape cacao. It's all about profits. It's not all about money. We sell the butter to pharmaceutical companies or food companies. Like, it's really appalling. So there's nothing wrong with it, I guess, in a grand scale. But if people want the education to know that true high grade cacao is where it's at, And you're going to get, yes, it costs more, but you're getting more calories per gram, which for some people is a bad thing, but you're getting more nutrition, you're getting more of the bioactive compounds per gram. So it's a much, much better investment, and you're getting a much better connection to it.
Of course. And so what you do, the company you've started, was it the Cacao Collective? Is that correct?
Cacao Collective, yeah.
You obviously sell the product.
Yeah, so we have a beautiful connection from kind of farm to consumer. We wanted to ensure that, when we were coming into this, it kind of fell into our laps by accident almost. People kept just asking me, can I get some? Can I get some? Can I get some? And I had some beautiful friends, amazing people, especially, guys like Willow and Tim Morrison, and some amazing guys that really supported my own journey of cacao and got me kind of into that space. And of course, Keith, he's a wonderful facilitator. He's like the chocolate shaman.
Okay.
There's some really amazing people in this space. And that's why when we came into this.
Sorry, brother, what was Keith's last name?
Keith Wilson. He's in Guatemala. He owns Keith's Cacao, and he's kind of the OG chocolate shaman. He's the one that kind of brought ceremonial grade cacao to the world, and the terminology and really the reverence and the respect that this powerful plant can offer us.
I love it.
And the respect we should have with her. So yeah, and Nicole, she was my facilitator trainer as well. She's beautiful. There's just been so many people that got me started personally on this journey. So when I stepped into Cacao Collective, which again kind of like fell into our laps, we really wanted to ensure that, again, from kind of farm to cup, the whole chain was sustainable. It was looked after. It was organic accredited. Like, everything was just, that really ticked the boxes for us. And our mission is to really provide it to all Australians at an affordable price. We really lowered our margins to try and get volume. Amazing. Because when I first came into it, it was a bit like you had to be spiritual, or only if you had the money to blow. It was, sometimes it's like 130 to 140 bucks a kilo. It could be very, very expensive.
Yes.
So we just kind of come into this with a lot of play. That was the big one. Play's my highest value. We wanted to allow all Australians, blue collar, white collar, single mom, anyone that could purchase this, and really bring their own ceremony to their own household, to their everyday, to give them a little bit more presence, a little bit more flow, better nutrition. It's cardioprotective. It's going to help brain chemistry, elevate their mood. So you don't have to go to like an ecstatic dance. You don't have to go to these like spiritual experiences, because they're all well and good. I love them.
Of course. Yep.
But it's like, it's so narrow. It's not accessible. Yep. And also too, I kind of think it's on a global standard level. It's like, we all need a little bit more love, joy, compassion, and empathy. And the world is screaming for it right now. So I think humans are really wanting that connection back to themselves, back to their own breath, which I'm sure I'll speak about in a sec, and just a little bit more love and connection.
Man, I love
that. It's kind of that, driving vehicle for that,
I love that. I will definitely be hooking some up straight after this. I cannot wait.
We got you covered.
And I'll talk to you a little bit more after we jump off about something else I've got in mind.
Awesome.
That's super exciting. I do have a call I need to jump on in a few minutes. So we're going to wrap things up shortly, but
we have to do a part 2 on kind of the fungi and the breath.
I think we're going to have to, because this is such a great conversation, and it's such a rich conversation. I'm absolutely loving this. I almost don't really want to insult the other areas by just skimming them. I feel like we should potentially.
Yeah, part 2. I'm down, brother. Me. My schedule's really flexible, so I'm down for part 2.
I appreciate that,
and I hope that was even enough for the viewers to even get out of this last hour. So
without a doubt, man, like that was pure gold. I'm going to ask this question now, because this is a question I ask all of my guests. Actually, I've got 2 questions for you, brother.
Go for it.
But before I ask those 2 questions, the best place for people to find you, get amongst all the amazing work.
I've got a website coming, which finally, for a while, I was like, I don't need a website, just a landing page or this and that. For now, just my name, Mitchell Vickridge on Instagram, my handle. So just literally Mitchell, MITCHLL. And look, you can see it on the Zoom, that spelling. And same on Facebook. And then on my Instagram, you'll see, as a co-founder, because it's my partner and I, Cacao Collective Australia, or Cacao Collective AU. Yeah. And so, we kind of consider ourselves as the alchemists and scientists that kind of want to merge those two, so people can learn the kind of psycho-spiritual part and also the science of the modern world and our discoveries. And then just myself, you're welcome to just send us a DM and get in touch if you feel like something resonated and you'd love to chat more.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. We're going to put all your links below this video as well, wherever it is. They'll all be there.
Epic.
We're going to make sure that people have very easy access to the incredible work you do, brother. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
two questions quickly. So the first question is, this is a Thoughts on Purpose podcast. It's all about developing that deliberate thinking that can produce, the best possible results in your life and improve the quality of your life on the highest possible level. Do you believe that everyone on the planet right now has a purpose?
Yes.
Yep. So, absolutely. I love that.
Absolutely. And just the purpose in a different way. I feel terrible right now. There's 23 million people in Yemen that are bones, just dying. They're not even fat on them. They just live bones, and it's horrendous. And, it sounds, because we can go so 5D and soul level of this, but I'll keep it quick. And that is that we just simply all have a purpose, but it's our perception to that purpose that really drives our life, right?
Yes.
And for some people, it just so happens that we live in a world of duality. So it's like some people have the highest of highs lives and the most pleasure of pleasure, and some people experience the most pain of pain or the poorest of poor. It's just how it's set up. And I think we always bring it back to ourselves and our mission, our purpose, our pathway, like why we're here. We can make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I also mean that for the people that don't have a voice, don't have privilege, don't, have access to clean food and water. We have the ability to bring that polarity into a more unified world where we abolish the rich and we abolish the poor. We kind of, there's always going to be rich and poor, but squeeze it back into a more sustainable, harmonious, and equal world. We can really create heaven on earth.
Yes, I love that, man. I love that. And that just takes all of us doing our part to step up. I absolutely love that.
100%.
I want you to imagine that you got access to the back end of Facebook, Instagram, all these major platforms. I know you're going to love this question. And I ask this to all my guests. Like you got access to the biggest platforms on the world, essentially. You had it, and you had the free reins for 2 minutes. What would you say? What was the message you'd want to deliver to people?
Breathe. Start with the breath, because it's free. Mm-hmm. Doesn't cost you a cent, and it's yours. No one can take it away from you. Mm-hmm. Start with the breath and build coherence in each and every single individual on planet Earth. Because unless you're coherent, when I say coherence, that's 1 hertz, brain and heart working in sync. Again, it's like no traffic jam. When we're incoherent, that's when we're fighting with our partner. We're saying things when 20 minutes after we go, fuck, why did I say that? I was so stupid, or I did that stupid thing. That's incoherence. Yep. So we can't start anywhere until we become more in our bodies, more in ourselves, less reactive and more responsive. Mm-hmm. And that starts with the breath. So that would be my first message. My second message would be to love more. Mm. Third would be to dissolve fear. Because once you dissolve fear, you can't control people. And that's what's happening right now. We're seeing a huge psychological operation. I'm just going to whip my dick on the table and say it. The biggest psychological operation of World War III ever to hit humanity. Mm-hmm. By virtue of owning people, their minds and their psyche.
Yes.
And the only currency that you need for that, the only fuel and substance you need for that is the resonance of fear, right? Inject fear into people and they lose their minds, they lose their sovereignty, and they will freely give it up by virtue of giving up their power and their responsibility.
Yes.
So breath, love, joy, compassion, and dissolve fear. And I think the rest will take care of itself. I don't need to tell them to fucking meditate and do yoga. I need a carrot stick.
That's
doesn't
right.
help
Man,
anyone.
Mitch, thank you so much, brother. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm so looking forward to getting the opportunity to jump on again with you, man, because you're and this is why I wanted to bring, you to the people I know and care about and connect them with you, because I've seen you showing up. I see the work you do. I see the depth of the work you do as well. And so I'm so glad we got to this conversation, brother. And I'm so glad you lived to tell the tale.
Oof, me too. And thank you. I really appreciate having me on. Part 2 for sure. And I'm just getting warmed up. So we ain't seen nothing yet.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate you.